Welcome to Pandora's Awareness Podcast, a place where we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. I'm your host, Asher, and today our guest is Kate. And you're here because we get to rock the theme of failure on this Tuesday. No, this is not my typical time, but we had to reschedule because we last time it was on, me and Kate was on. The internet was like punching us in the face. So today we gonna punch back. We're gonna punch back at a different time. So Kate is at a different location where she got better internet. And Kate, if you don't mind telling us where you're hailing from, what you specialize in, are you adding value to the world and who you being a hero to? And let's talk. Let's do some idea tennis. Over to you.
Yeah. Awesome, Asher. Thank you so much. I am Kate DeCosta. I am a health coach. I have a business called Integrate with Kate. I currently live in Rhode Island in the Newport area. So it's by the water. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about any hurricanes right now, unlike Florida. But what brings me passion and brings me alive is knowing that I'm helping somebody to better their lives. That really kind of gives me purpose, is knowing that I'm helping other people. I like being a helper. It makes me feel good. When I was younger, I was an esthetician for over 20 years, and I really just loved relaxing people and getting them all nice and calm and just, making them feel good about themselves and stuff. And through my own health struggles, I became very passionate about, health and the food that we consume. And, a big aspect of that, which I didn't know at the beginning of my journey, but it became a huge thing, was the correlation between gut health and your brain health and your moods and how well you're able to handle what life throws at you. And so for me, I really am passionate, very passionate about bringing that to the forefront for people because, from my own experience, I found that once I cleaned up my gut and took away foods that were not working for my body, that the inflammation in my body went down, the dysregulation that I had with my moods and the inflammation that I got in my brain from having foods that weren't good for me, gone. So I ended up not needing to be on any medication. I'm over 8 years off of medications, which is just amazing. And I mean, I was diagnosed bipolar 2 in my 20s and my early 20s. And I was told that I would have to be on medication for the rest of my life. So to go from that to fast forward, like 10 years later to not being on any medication and I mean, maybe not being perfect, I still had to learn how to handle my moods without having the crutch of having medication that kind of stabilizes you and keeps you kind of more on an even keel. So I had to learn tools and ways to regulate myself and my emotions and be like, okay, I'm gonna like lose my mind in about 10 seconds, so I need to take a step back. And it's
Hmm.
been very helpful, especially with having kids now. So, you think about the state of the world and in the US, how depressed people are, how we're on lots of medications and stuff. And I want people to know that that's not the only way and that there is hope, that they can include other modalities to, you know, um, achieve their healthiest version of themselves, whether it's, mentally, physically, emotionally. It's not, popping a pill isn't the only way to be able to do that. And I want to spread that out to the world and kind of get us away from relying on that so much. And I think it's just, overall, instead of just a Band-Aid effect, it's kind of getting to the root cause of it and allowing people to take control of their life if they so choose. And I think I told in the last call that we had, I was telling you about how my son, we had been on a call for, helping kids to kind of learn tools to better themselves and realize that, they have other options for, you know, say they're getting bullied in school or, they have a hard project that's coming up. It's just learning tools and stuff. And they talked about mentors. And so later on, I asked him, oh, who's a mentor? And he's like, well, what's a mentor? Because he's six. And I'm like,
Mhm.
somebody that you look up to, that you admire. And he's like, he said my brother, which is, his uncle. And then he said me. And I could have cried. So
Mhm.
that right there, like, it wasn't just about me doing it for other people and, doing it for myself, but also that I'm teaching my children and the next generation these things too. And I think that's really important. And it was just very, very powerful for me that he looked up to me like that and thought that I was like a badass because of that. And it was awesome.
So you would say that the question about who you being a hero to, and that would be you'd be your son for that.
Yeah.
Interesting. You mentioned two things. I gotta jump in here because I think I might understand your story a bit. So you said bipolar too, but also what about ADD, dyslexia, also did that stuff pops up, the symptoms for those things popped up in your life too?
Well, so the thing is that a lot of I did get I did get tested a lot for ADD as a child, but I'm
Mhm.
old enough that they didn't have ADHD when I was a kid. It was just ADD. Um, and I'm sure the tests are a lot different now than they were back then. I'm not sure, but the symptoms of that and the symptoms of complex PTSD they overlap very
Mm-hmm.
much so. And so um, through working with a therapist or multiple therapists and doing a lot of reading on my own and learning about my own diagnosis and um, I just found that the symptoms overlap a lot. And so I understand a lot of the kind of quirks that people who have ADHD may have because I have similar things, but mine are more based on traumas as opposed to, something that's just the way that their brain works. So, but
Hmm.
it's fascinating. And there's a psychologist, sorry, on Instagram, it's at the period holistic period psychologist, I believe, and she does a lot of work on talking about CPTSD and the symptoms of it. And that's kind of what brought me most recently to be like, because I'd see like, lots of people are talking about ADHD and I'd be like, oh, that sounds a lot like me. And that sounds a lot like me. And then
Hmm.
I saw her page and saw what she was writing about CPTSD. And I'm like, oh, wow, these symptoms are really similar and they're really similar to what I experience and stuff. And I'm like, and not that it's like an excuse for anybody's behavior, but it's nice to know because I think we're all responsible for ourselves. And yes, you can have a diagnosis at the same time. Um, I think everybody needs to be responsible for themselves and their actions if they're able to be. So for me, I'm like, okay, so even though I have these things, what are the tools that I can, you know, incorporate to be able to, you know, um, go through life in a smoother fashion instead of, everything seeming very chaotic and stuff like that. So for me, reading about that and learning about that was very validating.
Hmm.
Because and just you feel seen, you're like, oh my God, I had no idea that and that and oh my holy moly. So it's been very eye-opening. The more I learn about things and read things and stuff, and the more science learns about things and comes out with different studies and learning different things about the brain and stuff and the connection between the brain and gut health and your environment and all of these different things. It's just, I totally geek out over it. It's just,
Oh no, we gonna geek out today, okay? Because I like where this is going, because when we was talking earlier, you was talking about some of the stuff that you started to take responsibility for. And
hmm
the thing about taking responsibility is if you don't understand what the enemy is, it's kind of hard to take responsibility and fighting back, right? So when you
hmm
would start looking at these labels and see the information that was captured underneath these labels, and you
hmm
start digging down into the symptoms, you start recognizing what these symptoms are. You're like, wait a minute, I noticed this. Oh, I know what this is. So then you start recognize these symptoms, which tells you exactly what action you can take now because you can identify what that thing is that's opposing you, whether it's what are those symptoms from ADD, bipolar 2, so forth and so on. You can tell what they are. Now you can figure out the strategy. But when you don't know what it is, you're just blindly thinking, oh, there's something wrong with me, something wrong with me. No, it's something that's off with you. Like maybe you just haven't tuned in right on the right frequency, but you're like, oh, I need to be on 99.9, but I'm a little bit off. Now I know how to adjust my dial, right? And you start
Mhm.
doing that by doing research, you learn about yourself, learn about other people who will challenge you with that same thing. And before you know it, you're a lot more empowered. So I can tell based on how you were sharing your story earlier, but yeah, I started noticing these things. So now I can do something about my gut, my brain, everything is my body. But a lot of people do not know exactly what the enemy is in the room. Because
Yeah.
once you know what the enemy is in the room, you can fight back. But a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Because when I discover the symptom of ADD and dyslexia and so forth and so on, like at first, when I first heard about ADD, it was like a negative thing. I'm like,
Hmm.
not me, right? I would never subscribe to that
Yeah.
channel. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
then when I started doing my research, I recognized a lot of resources are attached to those labels. But then I can find information now and I can do something about it.
Yeah.
But after that, I was like, I gotta take responsibility. That thing, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna do something about that. And I
Mhm.
started taking action. I started feeling more empowered. And now, oh my God, life has changed so much. So, what about your experience?
So for me, like I love what you're saying because yes, I mean, you think about in the US, we have food items that have completely different ingredients than they
Hmm.
do in like Europe.
Hmm.
And they'll ban like in Europe, they've banned like tons of ingredients because they're like, nope, they're carcinogenic, they're neurotoxins, they're this, that, and the other thing. You know, these dyes aren't good for our kids, all of this stuff. Like Fruit Loops, I think it was, they have so many food dyes in ours, but in Europe, they don't have them. And the difference in the color, and they could because they already have the formula for it, they
Hmm.
choose not to. And so with the foods, like with the food additives, that's a huge, huge factor in children's behaviors
Hmm.
with our food. And so I'm not saying that there's no such thing as ADHD or ADD or like anything like that, but before you start popping pills for them, look to your diet first and see how much you can change and so that you don't have to be reliant because everything has a side effect, everything. And yes, a lot of the medications have been out for a long time, but there's still a lot of side effects for them. And yes, they may make a kid sit down and be able to sit and, work quietly for however long they need to for school. But I mean, well, first off, I think that that's some age appropriate. They should be bouncing off the walls. They need to be outside playing. That's how we tire them off and stuff. Like we have a trampoline at my house, in the house, just so that my kids, when they start getting too crazy, I'm like, go jump on the trampoline, like get it out.
Energy gotta move. Energy gotta
Yeah,
move. Yeah. Hmm.
exactly. But
Mm.
I think and we're conditioned for this too, because we're the only country that allows advertising for pharmaceuticals on our TV, and other countries don't do that. We have so many people on prescriptions in the US. It's really,
Hmm.
in my mind, devastating because it could be something as simple as changing up your diet, and people don't know that. And so I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. And I'm trying to like, get it out there and stuff. And um, I think that's where a lot of my passion comes from is that I'm just like, no, you don't have to be like this if you don't want to be. Like, let's figure it out. And I just want to like help as many people as possible. And so for me, being on like podcasts like yours and stuff, it's a great way for me to be able to reach new audiences, more people, and just get them, people talking and maybe being like, huh, she said that. And that really kind of struck a chord with me. And let me go look that up. And, it's just planting the seeds so that people can do the research or, you know, look it up on their own and see what resonates with them.
Mm.
Uh, I don't want to force anything on anybody, but I really think that I really think that food and our diet is, a huge foundational just premise for having a good life.
So this well, we're gonna switch gear into a little bit because I heard you just now. And this is the thing about when we talking to people, they're trapped in that addiction phase, right? It's very hard to get them out of it because like the advertisement world, they have really got them hooked.
Mm-hmm.
So now when we trying to get the message or saying, hey, try this, try that, people not really hearing you, right? They're not really hearing it because they're not dialed in properly. And I love this idea that like when you first meet somebody, like somebody's in trouble, like it's easy to lead people away from pain than to tell them you're gonna lead them into pleasure. They won't trust you to lead them into pleasure. They will trust you to lead them out of pain. Just like
Mm-hmm.
that old story in the Bible about Moses leading people out of Egypt and to the
Mm-hmm.
promised land. So there's two parts to it, right? The same mindset skill set that gets you to Egypt is not the same mindset skill set that can get you to the promised land. Same way, the same strategy that get people out of pain is not gonna be the same strategy that get them to pleasure or get them to the right
Yeah.
place. So then we gotta figure out how do we talk to people where we lead them out of the pain by saying, hey, these things are not great for you, right? They will probably hear us when this is not great for you. But if we're saying this thing is better for you, they probably won't listen to you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I'm doing this already. So it's like they won't trust you to lead them into the pleasure place. Like, hey, this thing is great for you. But now we gotta figure out lead them out of pain first. So what's the message that you would tell somebody right now to lead them out of Egypt, to lead them out of pain, lead them away from pain, so you can help them to see the direction they go to the promised land or to pleasure. How would you frame that for them?
Oh, honestly, that is such a personal thing because I think everybody, I mean, I've seen it happen time and again with
Mm-hmm.
myself, with, my loved ones, with clients. They have to get to a point where they are is so miserable that they're willing to do something
Mm-hmm.
extraordinary or something completely out of the ordinary for them to change because they're like, I can't, they've hit rock bottom with that,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, I can't handle this anymore. For me, it was like, I can't handle running to the bathroom all the time and not knowing what's going on. And I had really bad inflammation in my hands and my wrists, and I was an esthetician. It's like, how am I not, I can't work with my hands. How, like, I was wearing wrist braces every night and terrible
Mm-hmm.
carpal tunnel, all from inflammation. It's like, I had to hit that point of being more scared of not doing anything than being scared of doing something. I had
Mm-hmm.
to reach that point for me to be, for that to be the catalyst. The cost of inaction. They talk about that a lot in you know, I don't know, I've been to like a lot of workshops and stuff, and they're always like, well, what's the cost of inaction? I'm like, all right. So, but it's true. The same thing holds true for your health. What's the cost of inaction? You're going to end up living the same way. You're going to feel like shit all the time. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to, be on pharmaceuticals for the rest of your life. That's not really a fulfilling whole life. That's not living your best life, which is isn't that what everybody wants to be doing? Living their best life. So it's like, I think everybody's is so personal, but you have to reach that point where it's like, I can't do this anymore. Otherwise, there isn't really motivation to change.
Mm-hmm.
And but I feel like that is overall in everybody's life about everything. And it's like, as soon as, because everybody wants to be comfortable, and I don't blame them. Our egos love it. It keeps us safe. And in the past, it has kept us very safe. So thank you, ego, for having kept me safe up until now. And now it's time for me to take the reins and be like, nope, we're not doing that anymore because yes, that worked before, but now we know better. Now we want better. Now we realize that we can get better. So let's do better, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, I like that. That's very powerful, by the way. Very, very good. Very good. And if we had a time to the theme of failure, and you had to share with us like your rock bottom, your trampoline bounce back, your the thing that you was like that was it for you, like personally. What was that thing for you that really switched your light bulb on and like, oh, I gotta step out of this place I'm in.
Mm. It was after going out on a date with someone that I really liked a lot. And we had gone to a hockey game and had like a great night. And then I woke up, early morning and running to the bathroom and just staying in the bathroom and having to call out of work because I
Mm-hmm.
was so sick from the night before and it wasn't even from drinking, it was just from the foods that I had eaten that I didn't know at the time that I shouldn't be eating those anymore. Like my gut can't handle them. And it was mortifying in so many levels. But then also, like, it's kind of like, what am I doing with my life right now? Is this really what it's going to be like?
And you
And
was young.
I was in my late 20s at that point. Yeah, I was like 27, 28 at that point. And it's just like, I don't want this to be my life. I don't want this to be something that I just have to deal with. And like, oh, well, oh, okay, well, you can be put on this medication. Or they didn't even, and actually, the medication that the gastroenterologist put me on got pulled off the market because it was like carcinogenic or something. So I'm like, awesome.
Mm,
It's just so yeah, for me, that was I had already been like, okay, I need to do something and had started looking into like, supplements for like joint issues and all of those things, but I didn't realize that it was all connected. I didn't know that my joint inflammation and my carpal tunnel was being caused by the inflammation in my body, which was being caused by the inflammation in my gut. So like I had no idea that it was just like a cascading effect. And once
mm.
I started to work on one thing, all the other things started to kind of come into line. And I can't force you can they always say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So I can say all of these things, but again, that person has to reach that point of like the cost of inaction is way higher than the cost than me staying comfortable with where I am.
There's another part to that saying you can lead a horse to water, but you can make him drink, but you can make him thirsty. So if you had to make people thirsty about the solution that you're bringing, how would you make them thirsty?
Um, I would ask them what their life would be like if they didn't have to worry about whatever, health issue they're dealing with or mental issue they're dealing with, or, say they've got brain fog and they're just like, I can't remember anything. And, I'm so achy in the morning when I get out of bed and stuff like, okay, what would life be like if you didn't have to deal with those things? What would life be like? Would you be able to run with your kids? Would you be able to run with your grandkids? Would you be able to, like what would your life, what meaning would your life hold? How much more would your life expand if you decided to take control of, your habits as they pertain to eating, especially, and, be like, all right, I'm responsible for myself. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to be, accountable for these things. What would that life look like? And hearing them talk about, the beautiful life that they envision, I don't have to really do anything. They do it for me because they start thinking about all of those things. And they're like, I do want that. This is what I'm yearning for. This is what my soul is craving. This is what I'm here for. And they just have
Mm.
to remember that and tap back into that and be like, okay, I know this isn't going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. And,
Hey,
they're not alone in that journey either,
mhm.
especially if they're working with a health coach. We're the biggest cheerleaders. We have tools and, so many tricks and just information that we can help you with and guide you along the way. And trust me, not every day that I want to be like getting up and working out or eating healthy. And I would love to be able to go have like a piece of chocolate cake. And, I would love those things. But at the same time, I get so sick off of it, it's not even worth it to me anymore.
Mm,
So I think people they have those dreams inside of them. And once you ask the right questions for that to come out, then they realize this all on their own. I don't have to tell them what their dreams are or what their aspirations are or how I can help them. They need to know. They just are like, okay, this is the life that I envision. And it's like, okay, and this is what we can do to help you get to that point.
mm. And this is what I'm thinking. I'm listening to you. I'm
So it's
feeling
just
like,
like taking their dream and showing them how it can be a reality.
okay. So now they're like, wow, Kate, I see you can lead me to the promised land. I'm out of Egypt now. All right. I can see the pleasure. I can see the place I want to get to. So then how would you take them to the promised land?
Well, everybody's different, but I'd like to have everybody start off by having a food diary to start off with, just to get them reacquainted with their bodies and the foods that they're consuming. Because a lot of people are very mindless about stuff that they eat. And they're like, oh, yeah, I eat healthy. And then it's like, oh, okay. But then you ate that and you ate that. And then you ate, oh, okay. Yep, maybe not quite as healthy. Or I drink a lot of water. And then it's like, actually, I only had 2 glasses today. So
Mhm.
it's just making them accountable for themselves but in a gentle manner. And it's bringing them back into community with their bodies and being like, oh, okay, I ate this type of food and I didn't really feel so good afterwards. And so with doing that, it's also kind of starting to pick up patterns like, oh, well, I had rice and that didn't really like I got really bloated afterwards and I didn't really feel good. So then later on you can be like, I'm still having symptoms even though I've tried all of these things. Okay, let's look at the food diary and see what we have there. And you can be like, okay, here's a little pattern right here. And then you can have an elimination diet and you eliminate foods that you think could be causing you issues at the time. The whole point is to get your gut healthy enough that you can eat most foods whenever you want within reason. But to start off, I think it's important to eliminate foods that are causing you issues at the time to allow your body a chance to heal and to bring down the inflammation and stuff. And I see it time and again, though, as soon as people start eating healthier and more mindfully, that they didn't even realize how bad they were feeling before until they started feeling good. And then they're like, I don't want to go back there. And it's like I didn't even know how terrible I felt until I took it away, and now I feel good. And it's like, is it worth it? And I've had people that they're like, okay, yeah, and then I cheated and I had like a roll at dinner time or whatever, and it's like, how'd you feel afterwards? And they're like, not good, and all of my symptoms came back, so it's definitely this. So I think it's really important to I allow people to. I mean, like I have a protocol for the program and stuff, a basic kind of outline of how everybody is in
Mhm.
the program, but everybody's so individual that what one person needs to work on, another person may not. So it's like when I'm talking to you and we have conversation and stuff, I'm taking lots of notes and I'm picking up on things that maybe you are saying or not saying and being like, okay, this may be an issue. This may be an issue. And a lot of it is sometimes emotional too. So it's like, okay, everybody knows you're not supposed to be having Twinkies and ding dongs. Everybody knows they're not good for you. Everybody knows that they aren't really food. So where's the disconnect of like, okay, I know all of these things and I'm still going to go home and eat some. Or, I'm really stressed out at work or, with the home life. And so when the kids go to bed, I'm eating a whole sleeve of Oreos before I go to bed, So people know that what they're doing isn't necessarily healthy for them, but it's how do you stop those things? How do you, you know, overcome habits that have become so ingrained as a coping mechanism for you? And how do we have other coping mechanisms to replace that so that you're not just like, okay, well, now I got rid of one thing, but now I'm like, scrolling mindlessly because I need to check out or I need to feed that void inside of me. And it's like, no, 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 we don't want to do that. We want to talk to that void inside of us and be like, what's going on? So that you're not, again, just doing a band-aid. It's getting to the root cause of why things are the way that they are for you. And so I do that with everybody. And, I don't know your personal uh, gut health issues or anything like that to be able to say, hey, this is what you definitely need to do. But, everybody, I like to have them do the food diary just to get them in tune with their bodies and how they feel and how much food they're eating and what kinds of food they're eating and how much water they're having and whether or not they exercise or if they don't exercise at all or too much or whatever it is. And then kind of go from there because it just again, the diet is the foundation. Your body's your temple. You need to feed it. You need to feed it foods that are going to, bring you energy and aliveness and, creativity and stuff. You don't want to be eating foods that are going to be making you slow and sluggish and give you brain fog and stuff like that. So it's really, it's a foundational thing. And I think that that helps to bring people to the life that they want to live in a sustainable way, because it's not just like a diet, it's a lifestyle, and it's unlearning old habits and learning new habits to replace them so that you don't go back to the old habits. Or if you do go back to the old habits for a hot minute, giving yourself grace and being like, oh, yeah, I did that. Okay, yep, that wasn't a good idea. And getting back into it, getting back on the saddle, back up on the bike, whatever you want to call it, but not not putting yourself down when you failed.
Hmm. Well, thank you for sharing that, Kate. And as you was slaying out the road to the promised land, I was thinking, it's like food is environmental because I was thinking back to my youth, and I grew up in Jamaica, and it's interesting that I just eat what was around me.
Hmm.
And I say when I say food is environmental, that means your body recognizes the food that you need to be in based on the environment you're in, right? The food works for you. But then I realized I'm in America now. In America, we don't have the plantation like we used to have back in Jamaica, or the natural order of things around me, right? So now
Hmm.
you're in a store, they got stuff packaged from all over the place, all over the world, different kind of way they got it packaged. And as a person, you don't really understand exactly like what food works for that. You were talking about the food diary. The reason why food diary is important now, because we're in a place where so many foods are available, and the foods are processed in so many different ways. So then you gotta figure out environmentally what works for you, or like genetically what works for you, so forth and so on. You gotta recognize what works for you, energetically what works for you. But if you're not recognizing, tracking how you're eating, what you're putting in your body, you just put stuff in there, you're probably gonna be hard to tell what throw you off. But if you're like, I'm tracking what I'm eating, like why should you track what you eat? You should track what you eat because you're in a place where you have so many options, therefore you gotta track. You're not in a place where you're like, oh, I'm just eating what's around me. Then it's easy. I know what I eat every day
Yeah.
because those things grows on the tree that I can see them every day. I can see them in a
Hmm.
farm. But now you're in a store and they package things from all over the place with a whole bunch of stuff that you can't even pronounce the name. You gotta start tracking what you eat. You gotta
Yeah.
know what you put in your body. And
Yeah.
that's why it's important for you to track yourself. But sometimes people are like, I have to keep a log of what I eat, right?
You
I
don't
gotta
have to
keep a
do it
log.
for forever. Just
Yeah.
I like them to do it for 2 weeks when we
Mm-hmm.
initially do it, just to kind of get an idea. Okay, so you eat healthy. Let's see. Let's see what you
The
actually
elimination
eat.
process gotta happen by tracking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And it just brings you back in tune with food because, as you noticed, especially in the US, we're very disconnected from it. You know, my mom, I love her, but she's like, I don't know if I could go hunting for my meat. And I'm like, but you can go to the grocery store and pick up a package of pork or beef or whatever. I'm like, I think in my mind, it's more honorable to actually consume the food that you grow or have like livestock that you have on your farm or that the farmer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's more humane than to just go to the store and be like, yep, that steak looks good. And not that I don't do that myself,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a huge disconnect. And I think that I'm trying to bring people back to that, to be like, hey, look at what you're eating. Pay attention to this. It's important. What you nourish your body, like your cells, your body's constantly regenerating itself. 28 days for skin, different times for different
Mm-hmm.
organs and stuff. So it's constantly regenerating itself. And so literally what you eat
Mm-hmm.
is what you become. So if you're
100%.
eating shit, you're gonna end up feeling like it and
Mm-hmm.
acting like it because you're just so like in a slump and blah, so I want to bring people back into recognizing and being more mindful about it and reading the labels, as much as that's terrible. But once you start reading labels, you're like, oh, okay, I know this company. I can have, you know, this out of this company, and I like how they're humane here. And oh, these eggs are, from the farm instead of from the grocery store, so people can start making more choices and better
Mm-hmm.
choices. That's what it all is. Everything's a choice, and it's just making consistently better choices that serve you instead of pulling you back.
Mm. Okay, so we gotta wrap up a bit. Oh my God, we can talk all day, Kate. I feel like we can. Yeah. I gotta ask you this question. I think you answer it a bit, but I want to ask it specifically just in case somebody listening can hear it from your mouth again one more time. But why is this profession that you're in so important to you right now?
Well, from my own personal experience, it's obviously something that I'm very passionate about. And then, my kids also have trouble with gluten as well. So it's like, okay, putting that into like, helping out my kids so that they're mindful about the foods that they're eating and like, hey, we have treats every once in a while, but like Halloween comes around and notice how you guys get sick every year after Halloween, like
Mm,
3 days later because of all of the sugar that you've just consumed. And it's not that we don't have fun and not that we don't, do those things, but it's just hey guys, remember how you had all that candy? That's probably why you're getting sick now is your immune system's down and your inflammation is up. And so just
mhm,
talking to them and having that dialogue so that they can learn to make better choices and doing that not just for my kids, but also for the world at large, like wanting that to be like how everybody thinks and being like, okay, yeah, 80/20, 80% of the time you eat great, 20% of the time you get that, like, go to a barbecue and eat all the foods that you want to eat. And it's just balanced so that you're not like having a food disorder or anything like that. But again, I think it's really important to be mindful about what you're consuming. And you know, I want I want people to not have to rely on prescriptions for everything when they
mm.
don't have to be. Because, like I said before, there's side effects for everything. Even if the prescription is great and really helpful, there's still some side effects. So, if you can, even if it's just minimizing the dosage that you have to take of something, I think that's a win.
Well, food also has side effects.
Yeah.
The one that you prescribe yourself when you go to the store and pick it up. You like look at the box. This is gonna be the side effects. Oh, I have no energy tomorrow. That's the side effects of the food you eat. Oh, my gut is like tripping after it's on fire. That's the side effects of the food you eat. Right, the
Well,
food is
red
side effect.
red food diet, red food diet number 40. Like I see that and I'm like, oh God, the kids are getting crazy today. Like,
Oh my God. Well, okay, Kate, we gotta wrap up. Now, if somebody hear you right now and says, Kate, I love your energy. I mean, I love your smile, I love the way you talk, I love the way you explain things. You sound like a really interesting person, and I would love to connect and work with you. You sound like my hero. How can I connect with you?
so you can always connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn under Kate DeCosta. I'm on Facebook under the same name, Kate DeCosta, as well as Instagram at integrate period with period Kate. And then my website is integratewithkate.net. I came out with a book called Gut Feelings that talks a lot more about this and kind of like is a nice way to ease into these things and
Hmm.
just to kind of give you some beginner tips and tricks on how to have a more balanced diet and feeling better about life overall, like tips on how to stress management and sleeping better and things like that. So because again, it's we're not just one body system. It's not just like, oh, my gut health, oh, my heart health or anything like that. It's all connected. And so I think it's really important to incorporate everything. And so the book Gut Feelings really, it's an easy way for people to kind of get into that without getting overwhelmed. It's because I know that there's a lot of information out there and it can be very overwhelming. So that's broken down in, easy digestible information and a
Hmm.
great beginner way to kind of delve into making sure you have better gut health.
I totally forgot about book. Yeah, you have a book. Oh my God. No, this
Yeah.
is this is awesome. And for the folks to listen, really, it's like this is something I really encourage people to do a lot, right? You like find other people intellectual shortcuts. And you've created an intellectual shortcut by putting a book together where you have information in that people can follow. Because
Mhm.
like if you're gonna take this journey with you, they're gonna say, Kate, I'm choosing you to lead me out of Egypt and to lead me to the promised land. You put a book together with the intellectual shortcut to get out of there and to where, right? And then based on that, you can follow your journey. So no, that's just awesome. I totally forgot about your book. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm coming out with a 30-day online program that delves a little bit more into
Mm-hmm.
it. So it's like, okay, this is like, you know, the beginners, and then the course is kind of like more the advanced, kind of like intermediate, advanced
Mm-hmm.
workings of it. And it's really cool. It's a bunch of different modules that I do videos on and just a bunch of information, handouts and stuff. So that's really cool. I'm excited about that. And it just
Me too.
it
Me
goes
too.
into different things about your gut and like um the synthetic sugars that people have and stuff, and how that affects your mental health and your gut and stuff. So it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Mm. No, that is nice because this is something I learned, right? After doing a lot of studying. So it doesn't matter how much the information is out there. It mentioned the information people know that this it's a saying that we need remind more than we need educating, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's you could say the same thing somebody should say, you just gotta come from your mouth. Meaning that because there's people that are specifically designed for the frequency of your voice, right? For the way stuff so many comes in your mouth because they're here and you're here to wake them up in a certain kind of way. So I recognize that. So even though I'm doing my on my journey, I realize that I might have heard somebody might have said this thing 20 times. I actually need to say the same words because there are people out there that when they hear from my voice, it makes a different frequency in their body, in your
Yeah.
mind. Like their ears pops up when they hear it from my voice because my voice was designed to help them. Right?
Hmm.
You could tell them all day they won't listen, but if they hear from my mouth, they listen. Same thing. So that means you gotta say the same thing, even though somebody's already said it, you gotta say it out of your mouth because people are listening to your voice. They
Yeah.
hear to hear your voice. Your voice is the voice that can wake them up. So I encourage everybody, like, just say it, just say it. Like create yourself, say it because they're gonna hear it and like, oh, that sounds like the right tone for me. I'm gonna wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you had to share your biggest takeaway or giveaway from this conversation, what would it be?
Mm. I actually loved because it stretched me beyond my comfort zone. Um, you asking me how I would lead people to the promised land. I really enjoyed having to
Mm.
articulate that and like respond to that because it's like, oh, all right. It's not something that you get asked all the time. So it was um it was nice to have to like kind of really think about what I wanted to say and how I would say it, and um definitely stretched me beyond my comfort zone, which I like that. So thank you.
Wow. All right. Let's go, Mrs. Moses. Lead him to the promised land, right?
Yeah.
No, no, actually, that was
They'll be
beautiful.
yelling at me like they did Moses. There's no food.
No food. That's why we're leaving these bad food behind, right? Lead him away from bad food. Ooh, that is
There
something
you
there.
go. Yeah.
You lead him away. That's the pain. That's the leading away from pain. Leading away from bad food,
Yeah.
and they lead him to good food.
Yeah.
But they won't trust you to lead them to good food because they don't know you. But they
No.
would definitely trust you to lead them away from bad food because
You just
people.
crowd it out. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. But I like the journey you're on, by the way. I like what you're doing because I think it's a big thing in America. Because I look around because I'm a military person. I retired from the military, and some of the biggest challenge that we're hearing about military right now is that they can't find enough healthy people to join the service because they're not healthy. A lot of kids are going to high school, they're leaving high school, but they're not healthy enough to join the military. It's a
Yep.
lot of work. So,
Yep.
and that falls on, the family structure, the societal structure, the whole thing, because you need to be healthy and strong enough to defend your country.
Yeah.
And if you're not healthy and strong enough to do it, then wow, who's gonna do it, right? Because we all are
Right.
getting old. You getting old, I'm getting old. I can't do it no more, right?
No, I
Right.
know.
So we need healthy people to do that, and that's where you gotta lead them away from that stuff that's not good for them, that keep them unhealthy, to stuff that's healthy for them.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you doing that.
That's gonna bring them life. Yep.
Okay, last question. The last question is, what is the one thing or two thing when people do it drive you crazy?
Oh. Hmm. It's funny because everything that other people do that drive me crazy, when I'm honest with myself, I also do that sometimes. And it's more like, oh, I'm judging myself for doing those things. And that's why I notice it in other people. And I'm like, oh, and then it's really should be like, oh, you know?
Wow. Kate, you are recognized. It's a very question that I ask because the answer to that question is the answer to yourself. You
Yeah.
you got it so well because yeah, we're so guilty of it. The thing that drives us crazy because we was very culprit of it in the
Yep.
past. So
Yep.
here's what drives me crazy. When I'm talking and somebody cut me up before I finish what I'm saying, drives me
Mm.
crazy. I used to do that. I used to hate it when that was done to me. So then I was like, I would never do it to other people. So now I'm like, okay, let me stop. No, recognize that because I see it. So interesting enough, you still didn't answer my question though. So what's the answer to your question?
Oh boy. All right, fine.
I'm not letting you off the hook, Kate. You think you're still like
Um,
hmm
I don't know. You know, the more I give myself grace, the more I have grace for other people.
hmm
So it's hard for me because even though I'm like, oh, I hate it when people don't chew with their mouth open or something, but it's like I sometimes do that too, so it's really hard for me. So because I'm like, well, yeah, but I do that too. So yeah, I guess, and people driving slow in the left-hand lane. Yeah.
Mm.
I'll be honest, traffic, mm-mm, we are not friends.
Where you
And
located
I
again?
used to live in Boston and it was terrible there, like
Mm.
terrible traffic, terrible. So
Mm. No, that's the honest answer too. Because sound like you used to drive in the left lane. All right.
yeah.
When he
Well,
was
if they're
when
driving
he was a
slow in
new
the left lane,
driver.
I don't care if you're going like, at a good clip and you're in the left lane, that's fine. But if you're like driving slow and everybody's moving around you and we have to like actively go around you and you see multiple cars going
And
around you and you
you
still
like
don't
this.
move over, but like just no.
You gotta like, it's funny when I see those people sometimes, and you just like it's like an older lady or older gentleman, and they got the grip on the steering wheel. It's like I'm so scared, right? I'm just,
It's so
you gotta
funny you
like,
say that. I was literally in my mind thinking of my mom and how I have to be like, get out of the left lane when we're driving in the car.
but but yeah, he's right. You gotta give them grace because it's better that than get in an accident and get me in an accident, right? But
Yeah.
But I remember when I first left, when I was stationed in Europe, and I came back to US, because in Germany it's like the autobahn is like just go right, and
Mhm.
then the rule is you get in the left, you get back in the right, right? Get in the left, get back in the right. Everybody knows that. When I came to US, I was like, man, these don't know how to drive over here, man. Oh my God, two cars, same speed, just holding up everybody.
Don't
But I
go to
did.
Connecticut. That's what they do, the entire state.
I'm in Connecticut right now.
Oh my God, that's why. That's why you have that because it's a thing. It's a thing. Connecticut drivers, I don't know why. Nothing against them as people, but like the driving, it's just a phenomenon. My sister lives in Virginia and has
Mhm.
for over 20 years. So we drive down there frequently, to visit her kids and her and stuff. And it's like every time we go through Connecticut, it's like, okay, oh, well, we got to get through Connecticut. You're like, we got to get through Connecticut. It's always just, and they're always doing construction too. It's just like, oh God.
So Rhode Island folks are really awesome drivers, huh?
No, I don't think so either. I'm from Mass originally, so,
Okay. All right, Kate. This was fun. I like it. All right. One more time. If they gotta reach you, where they gotta reach you.
So on Instagram at integrate period with period Kate, on LinkedIn as Kate DeCosta, on Facebook as Kate DeCosta, and on my website integratewithkate.net, and you can find my book on those platforms as well, the links to them and stuff like that. So check it out.
All right, folks. You tuned in upon the Rose Winners podcast, and today, if you didn't pick up on the failure, then you wasn't listening. But the theme of today was around failure, and Kate definitely gave us some journey, some tour of her museum to figure out exactly how her life was like and what she's passionate about, how she adding value to the world, and who she being a hero to. She said her kid, but I know she's been a hero to people that definitely want to get out of Egypt. So if you feel like you're in Egypt right now, you want to get out of Egypt to the promised land, then Kate is your quote unquote Moses.